The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler and Jim Kaiju Baker. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
I've been running forever. What the hell's going on?
Where are we even? We just
I don't know. We're lost in the woods somewhere. This is crazy.
We got chased out of our regular TMI studios by what appears to be zombies.
Yeah, that's exactly what they look like. I'm not too thrilled right now.
This is just too much of a coincidence for me. Right. This episode is about zombies. There's a cabin. There's a cabin in the woods. Let's head towards that. Let's go.
A cabin in the woods. This is where we're going.
It's either stay in the woods or go indoors. Let's go.
All right. All I gotta do is outrun you. Let's go.
It's abandoned. It looks abandoned. This is perfect. This
looks creepy.
Let's open the door. There's a fire going and everything. Look at that. They set it all up for us. Close the door. Let's look.
Hey, guys.
What the?
Hey!
Wow, that's Kurt.
Kurt's here.
What's going on?
You live here?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is my own shack in the woods, my own cabin in the woods.
Sorry to crash, dude. But if you didn't
it's all good.
It looks like there's a zombie apocalypse going on.
Yeah, so I heard. Crazy.
All right, let's board up these doors and windows really quick. There we go. Hey, it looks just like it does the Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, great.
Apparently, only we have to board up some of the windows.
Not all of them.
Not all of them.
Exactly.
No. Oh boy! Wow, this is going to be one heck of an episode.
So Kurt, Kurt is a friend of Jeff and I, an equally, should I say, nerdist? Is that copyrighted? That term?
Nerdist. We just copyrighted it.
There you go.
Movie nerd.
He's on an equal level to us in terms of nerddom. So
nice.
So we feel that Kurt is highly qualified to co-host this episode with us.
Well, we're in his house now, so I guess you know.
And Jeff, did you happen to grab your notes before we fled from the TMI
thankfully,
studios?
I did
as well.
Yes, you know, I left my family behind, but my notes are intact, so we're good to go.
You took the important stuff.
Yes,
there you
indeed.
go. Well, welcome, guys. This is really great. I'm glad to be a part of this.
Nice.
Now,
Cool.
Kurt, I hope you had time to see Zombieland Double Tap and Night of the Living Dead.
Absolutely.
Oh, then great. Then
it's almost like you knew we were coming.
Yeah, imagine that. What are the odds?
So, Kurt, sometimes we like to bring up some current events and news.
Okay.
Outside of the zombie apocalypse. Yeah. Well, if we survive, we can talk about this news. So we'll just keep going here.
We got some news? Okay,
we got
let's
lots
go.
of news, actually. So feel free to chime in, Kurt. So our friend Kevin Feige of the MCU, is now master of the universe. He has taken over the entire studio. He is now chief creative officer, and he's not only overseeing the film, but TV, animation, and publishing.
Oh, wow.
My take on this is that we're going to have a much more cohesive Marvel universe. All these different platforms, which you can probably only watch on Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The TV arm is now probably sequestered to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
But then you got those freeform shows, right? So I guess that's included. Cloak and Dagger and the Runaways.
You're right, Runaways. But that's cool, though. I mean, if he's overseeing all of those aspects, he's proven his worth. So, yeah, congrats.
Yeah,
CCO.
And I think that you can't really have that because you're taking characters from the cinematic universe and giving them TV shows.
Yeah, so you can't be doing something that's going to counteract. So, but good for him.
Yeah, but here's to maybe him bringing back Daredevil and some of those Netflix characters and incorporating them as well.
Netflix. Anybody read comic books still here?
No.
Have you ever read Jeff Smith's Bone? Turn my daughter onto this.
Oh,
series.
yes, actually.
Yes.
Wait a second. Yeah, I do know this because my son has a few of the graphic novels.
Yes,
he is a fan.
It's getting an animated series. So very excited for that. Yeah, that's very cool.
On Netflix.
On Netflix. So I'm not really sure who the creative studio is, but it's in development. So very cool. Anybody watch Monday Night Football?
No.
Then you missed. But have you seen the Rise of Skywalker trailer, the final trailer?
Yeah, I saw it on YouTube. I didn't see it on the.
You didn't see it on
football.
TV. Well, apparently, pre-sale tickets have exceeded Endgame. So
yeah, that's what I heard. Like in the first hour, like it exceeded it by 30%.
So as much as people are whining and complaining about the Last Jedi, they're still excited to go see this. I don't know. I was kind of underwhelmed by it, to be honest with you. But J.J. Abrams likes to kind of keep things close to the vest. So
yeah, it's one of these things where I am not going to watch it, and I am going to close my eyes if it comes up in the theater.
Good luck with that. How'd that work out for you with Last Jedi?
I did. I managed to do it.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. This is supposedly like going to tie up all 9 movies in a nice little bow. I don't know. If I get spoiled, I get spoiled. I'm not really holding back this time. I don't care. The title alone kind of throws me because I feel that what's going to happen, they're using Skywalker as a noun. And I think that basically my guess is that we're not going to have any more Jedi or Sith. Everyone who's Force sensitive will just be a Skywalker. That's my take. Unless
we figure out that Rey is a Skywalker herself in some way, and that's what it's referring to.
Yeah, I think that's a little, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. That's it. The only other, you know what? I'm going to bring up this right now because this is going to make Jim angry. Emma Otter, right?
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes.
It's getting remade.
Really?
They're doing a remake.
Animated?
That's my question. And I brought it up on another thread on Facebook, and I made the mistake of saying, is it live action or is it puppets? And someone responded, puppets are live action. And I'm like, yes, I got that. I know that.
Was it comic book guy? Puppets are live action.
Stupidest question ever. Flight of the Conchord. The guys who were the Flight of the Conchord, they're writing this, creating it. I don't know.
Huh.
This is paramount to Jason Segel taking over the Muppets in the Muppet movie, which did not pan out very well.
Well, listen, I give him credit for trying to bring that franchise back.
So is it produced by the Henson Company?
I would have to think that they would still be involved somehow.
They have to be. They own it.
But
right?
if you're gonna go old school Muppets, then why even remake it? I mean, if it's live action in the sense that the Lion King was quote unquote live action and it's really animated, I don't know. Why?
They can't use, maybe they will, mentioning the Lion King and all these Disney live action. They just full scale take from the animated version, even the songs. So maybe that they'll go the same route with this. I don't like it. I don't like the idea.
I know. I don't like it either. So I think that's it. We're going to stop right there with the news. Because now we got Kurt involved. So
I know. And we got to finish this episode before these zombies get in.
That is the case. Yes. You have weapons in the cabin at all?
I think I got a crossbow somewhere.
A crossbow. Great.
Yeah.
I'll look up on YouTube how to work that.
I think I saw a salami hanging from the ceiling in the kitchen as well.
Just aim for the head, man. Aim for the head.
I might also have a salad shooter.
Nice.
All right. So we're starting this week with Zombieland Double Tap. Is it Zombieland 2 Double Tap or just Zombieland Double Tap?
I think they just dropped the 2 altogether.
They dropped the 2 altogether?
Zombieland Double Tap. Yep.
Yeah. 10 years since the first
10
one.
years.
It took a long time.
Right. So the question is, did we need it? I do like the fact that they acknowledge the 10-year time gap.
Yeah. And yet they're still not calling each other by name.
Apparently nobody does. Like, that was something that was set up in the first movie, which is, all right, let's not get too attached to each other, so let's just use, like, our hometown.
But just within the core of the main characters. But it seems like all of humanity that's
now
left
all of a sudden we're introduced to all these other people, and they are all doing the same thing. And I'm like, well, it must be the memo got out. I don't know. Yeah, you would think somewhere 10 years at one point, you just turn to each other like, you know what, my name's Joe. I will say it was fun. It was fun, kind of revisiting these characters.
Yeah, it was. It was. Now, I went back and watched the first Zombieland 2 just to reacquaint myself with it before I went to go see the second one, and did a little research on the first one. And it came out before the zombie boom, which The Walking Dead pretty much single-handedly brought upon the face of pop culture.
Yeah, Robert Kirkland actually said that Zombieland helped to open up the door with AMC. I guess they were on the fence as to whether they were going to make the program, but once they saw the success of Zombieland, that gave them the confidence to go ahead and actually do The Walking Dead.
Huh. So it's like, all right, we want to do this, but not as funny or likable character. Okay,
Yeah.
we're in.
That is the case. Now, Zombieland itself, I think it gives itself a little bit more credit than it should, because it's not as if zombies didn't exist before Zombieland, and we will get into that with our classic feature. But yes, it was a big enough box office success, as Kurt said, that AMC felt it was worth the risk of getting into the Walking Dead TV series. So we have a lot to thank or to blame on Zombieland.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because as we say, now the zombies, with The Walking Dead, it just exploded, because you see all these 2-bit B movies and series that have come out in the wake of The Walking Dead. So I think the public, especially with the show, has kind of suffered from zombie overkill. It's interesting because Zombieland Double Tap is just kind of barely making back its budget, I'm noticing, in terms of box office. So I think maybe there is a little bit of zombie fatigue in this.
Well, I mean, just here on the show, we've both kind of like dropped the ball on The Walking Dead. That was a big, that was big for a while. Now it's kind of like,
Yeah, it was definitely
it kind of petered out.
It was must-watch TV. It was like water cooler television.
right.
And that you had to watch it before you got spoiled the next day. It's something you had to watch live, because everybody that you knew was watching it live.
Yep.
And talking about it the next day. But now, I would just watch the latest season premiere. It's no longer event television. It's like you sit through an hour of these characters having reunions with this teary Hallmark music going on. Like,
Oh my gosh.
Daryl and Carol, they're having a meaningful discussion. It's not about zombies. It's like a soap opera.
Yeah.
So
That's what it happens. All these shows.
Yeah, I just think that if they just
there.
realized what the core of the show was, it was these characters surviving and it's not really that anymore. It's them dealing with other characters, and I think they should get back to the zombies. Maybe, I've said this many times, is I think it would, just to go somewhere new, get back to the issues of what's causing this in the first place. Maybe bring that back into it. They've made no attempt to do that since the first, maybe, into the beginning of the second season. You did have Eugene, which was a red herring for a season or two, but that was all they did. Yeah. So,
I think it's kind of really become redundant, to your point. I mean, they kind of got away from showing the zombies and like the core element of like what attracted a lot of people to the show. So
even this movie kind of sidelines the zombies to a certain extent. It's about the relationships.
But it is fun. You can't take
it is fun, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but if you get down to the core of it, nothing happens. That's the same one as well, right? His whole drive was to find Twinkies.
Yeah, and then to get to Pacific Palisades, or the name of the amusement park in the first movie.
Right. And in this one, it's simply the exact, there's not a single mention of Twinkies in this one, by the way. Right. I was very disappointed.
No, there is. He has a Twinkie tied to the front of the...
stuffed Twinkie, like right on the grill.
Oh, I guess I missed it.
Of the beast.
I missed it.
Was it Twinkie the Kid? Was it the actual...
Twinkie the Kid. Twinkie the Kid,
there you go. I did miss that then.
Yeah. We start off in Zombieland Double Tap with our beloved characters. They're still together, the four of them as a unit. So we've got Little Rock, Columbus, which is Jesse Eisenberg, Tallahassee, Woody Harrelson, and Wichita, Emma Stone. Now, answer me this. It's established that Abigail Breslin's character and Emma Stone's characters are sisters. Yet they're from different cities.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to point that out. I mean, once Little Rock runs away, she's all about, my little sister's out there. But at this point, they're all kind of family.
So, so the first one was like a road trip movie. To get to this amusement park. And the second one opens where they inhabit the White House. They go to Washington and they set up shop in the White House, and they live there.
Yes, which is actually pretty funny.
It is. There's some funny scenes
Yes.
around that, especially in Lincoln's bedroom. Columbus and Wichita are about to go to bed, and she makes him put two
sticky notes over
Lincoln's eyes. So
yeah, this to me is the most unbelievable aspect of this entire movie. That the premise that Jesse Eisenberg is getting more action than Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
I buy the zombie apocalypse. I buy the fact that no one else is living in the White House. But that for me is just kind of like really
over the top. Yeah.
Over top. Yeah. That's
yeah, it's true. It's true. So they start out in the White House. And they're pretty much set in their roles now. They are a family. And as most normal teenagers tend to do, Abigail Breslin's Little Rock starts to rebel a little bit, and she wants to break out of that family cocoon. And she does so. She takes up with a musician, a real D-bag, a real D-bag.
What was his name? Berkeley? They call him Berkeley?
Yeah.
Berkeley.
A pacifist with a guitar who's pawning off Bob Dylan songs as his own in the apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, if you like that one, you're going to love this one.
So she takes off, and Woody is aghast, and so it becomes a road movie again. The core group are looking for Little Rock to make sure that she's okay, so they're chasing after her. I kind of skipped out over a little bit. It starts with Emma Stone and Abigail Breslin taking off and running into Berkeley. Little Rock ditches Wichita, Emma Stone's character, to go off with him, and then she ends up kind of skulking back to the White House, but not before we meet a new character by the name of Madison. Now, loved her, really?
Yeah,
now, she could have gone both ways. She was borderline annoying.
There's a lot of people who absolutely hated the character. I love this character. She
stole the show.
She made this movie for me.
I think
it's so much fun.
If she was in it any more than she was, it would have been too much. But I think you just got enough of her.
Yes, yeah.
That it was welcoming.
Yeah, there's a scene early on where they're in the car and she doesn't have her seatbelt on and he slams on the brakes and she goes flying into the dashboard. It brought tears to my eyes. I was laughing so hard. She's just a stupid, inept child. And somehow
she's an extremely straight from the 80s Valley Girl type of character.
Yes, yeah, over the top, tight sweaters, and she's somehow living in the mall freezer.
That's in a Pinkberries, which is, I think, a yogurt ice cream place, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
frozen yogurt.
So they find her. Then this is after Wichita and Little Rock leave the White House. So they go. Woody and Jesse Eisenberg's characters go to a mall. They find this Madison character, bring her back to the White House.
She immediately beds Columbus.
It's not you. It's the old guy. Come on.
Right. Yeah. Let's do this, or I'm going after the old guy. All right, whatever.
And of course, immediately the same night is when Emma Stone comes skulking back after Abigail Breslin.
Right, and the fact that you mentioned she left because he proposed to her, and she kind of flipped out.
With the Hope Diamond.
And then to come back and find him, basically in bed with this girl. And you didn't wait so long.
So when they go off on the road trip to find Little Rock's character, just the added awkwardness of having Madison there along with Wichita. So they're there's I don't even want to say a give and take, because Madison doesn't even realize that Wichita was Jesse Eisenberg's girlfriend, or is being sarcastic to her. And at one point during a melee with some zombies, you see Madison's character get almost bitten on the foot by a zombie. Columbus saves her, but apparently she starts to turn, right?
Yes,
so you were thinking, wait a second. The zombie didn't even bite through her boot, yet she's turning. They have to get her out of the car, and Jesse Eisenberg, apparently in a mercy killing, shoots her in the head as she's turning into a zombie. You don't see it happen, but they leave her on the side of the road and they take off.
So like you said, you get just enough of that character and you're like, oh, that's kind of...
Then she's gone. Yeah.
She's gone, So, but is she gone?
Is she gone?
Oh, yeah. Did we tell anybody we spoiled these movies?
What was it? Was a zombie that almost bit her foot? Was that the T-800?
Oh, yeah. We didn't even talk about that, which is this evolving zombies that are now dealing with. Because we get up front, we get that nice little montage up front, which was a nice callback to the first movie, where you get the slow motion attacks. I love that stuff. And so we get
to Metallica.
Yes, so we get it opens up with them, taking out all the zombies in slow motion, breaking through the credits or whatever.
No slow motion topless strippers in this one.
No, missed that. But they basically had it down to there was three types of zombies. You had the Homer, which was just the dumb fat ones that were chasing butterflies around. The Hawkins that actually are kind of starting to figure stuff out, and then the Ninja. And then all of a sudden, they encounter this T-800, as they called them, based on the Terminator, which was these super fast, hard to kill. And that's the one. I think you're right. That was no, that wasn't the one that bit her. The one, it was underneath the Winnebago.
Yeah, it was under the RV.
Yeah, okay.
It was under the Winnebago, but that was where
Yeah.
they first encountered what they refer to as the T-800, because
Yeah.
you got Tallahassee just unloading on this thing, and he just keeps getting right back up. Hard to kill. So yeah, so now they're confronted with this Terminator. You've got Little Rock on the run with this knucklehead, and Tallahassee had this little thing where he wanted to go to Graceland.
Yeah, he was convinced that she was going to head towards Graceland herself.
Right.
So
because,
he thought if they went to Graceland, they would find her there with Berkeley.
Yeah, because you do get the incident that he's really kind of taken on that fatherly role of her, because she was young in the first one, right? 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think she was like a 12-year-old or something like that, or 10-year-old.
There's a ton of Elvis references in here, and especially once they get to Graceland. So if you're an Elvis fan, it's kind of fun.
So Graceland is a ruin when they get there.
Yeah,
so that was a little disappointing, because I was like, oh, we're going to see the inside of Graceland now, like taken over by zombies, but it wasn't the case.
No.
So we get the next best thing, which was, what was the Hound Dog Hotel?
Hound Dog, which full neon lights, all up and running, plenty of electricity. Yeah, how'd they get enough gas to get from Washington, D.C. to Nashville, by the way?
That is
That's
a
a good
good
point.
question. Yeah. You can't ask yourself these things when you're
I
watching
did.
zombie movies,
I
right?
did.
There's got to be some suspension of this.
I know.
Yeah.
My suspension was taken over when Jesse Eisenberg had sex twice in this movie.
So they get to this Hound Dog Hotel, right? So after the disappointment of Graceland, they drive away from Graceland. They find all the lights on in the Hound Dog Hotel. It's garishly done, almost like the hotel in El Royale, right? It was very similar to that.
Yeah, kind of.
So
This was even more elaborate, though.
Yep, and they see the Beast. It's parked outside the hotel, so they figure that Little
she's
Rock
there.
is in there. So they go and all they find is Rosario Dawson's character of Nevada, who's kind of taken over the role of hotel proprietor. And apparently, I don't know, she sleeps with everybody that comes by.
Apparently, that does seem to be the case, yes. That I do believe.
And she is an Elvis fan. Good thing, because she's
Yeah,
holed
good
up in
thing.
the Hound Dog Hotel. And so she does bed Woody Harrelson's character. So he has a love interest. And this is the best scene in the movie. It's coming up here. A monster truck comes out of nowhere, takes out the Beast. And who comes out of the monster truck but doppelgangers for Tallahassee and for Columbus, played by Luke Wilson, who is a mirror image of Woody Harrelson's
Tallahassee, yeah.
character. And then Thomas Middleditch, who you know from the Verizon commercials. And also, if you've ever seen the Captain Underpants movie, I forget which one he voices. It's either George or
really?
Harold. Yes.
Well, this is a huge missed opportunity to not have Albuquerque played by Michael Cera.
Let me tell you, they approached him.
Oh, did
approached
they?
him for this, and he turned it down.
No.
He did.
Come on.
Michael Cera was, I think he's still upset at Jesse Eisenberg stealing his shtick. Jesse Eisenberg takes all the roles that I'm sure were meant for Michael Cera to begin with. As a matter of fact, the first Zombieland is the first movie that you really of note where you see Jesse Eisenberg in a movie, right? It's the first time I remember seeing him in a movie. And I thought to myself, what, they couldn't afford Michael Cera? They got this guy, instead, and I thought he was acting that way, like doing a Michael Cera impersonation, but I guess not. That's just the way he is.
I don't know. I've never seen the two of them in the same room together, so I'm still convinced they're the same actor.
I think maybe it was the Oscar nomination that did it, that really put Michael Cera over the edge. I don't want to see that day when they are in the same room.
The Social Network? Is that what you got? Yeah.
It's like, I could have done that. That could have been me. I could have done that.
That could have been me. I could have been a contender.
So I don't really blame him. Like, looking at it from that perspective, it's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
No.
Then you're telling me that I'm copying this guy when it was the other way around.
Yep, I got you. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty funny.
But it would have been classic if you did see Michael Cera.
Damn
step
straight.
Out of that.
I did not know that story because I immediately said that's a missed opportunity. But apparently, smarter minds than me were already on top of that.
But to be politically correct, of course, like the interview that I read from the director where he said that it was Michael Cera was their first choice. But of course, Thomas Middleditch, he did a great job. I'm glad that we got him. He had to say that, right? But he does do a great job where they're comparing notes about their rules for the zombie apocalypse. It's like, my number one is cardio. And it's like, oh, cardio, that's so smart.
Well, what's interesting is that like in the original script, Albuquerque was supposed to be the doppelganger of Tallahassee, and that's it. They weren't going to have like a doppelganger for Jesse Eisenberg's character. But then somebody said, well, wouldn't it be fitting if he also had a doppelganger? So that's where they got the character of Flagstaff from. But originally they were supposed to be bitter rivals. Eisenberg and Middleditch improvised more of a mutual admiration for each other.
Yeah, no, I thought that was brilliant. It was brilliant because they were just because that's the way his character is. Just
it was. It was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the audience and the characters around them were kind of like rolling their eyes.
But at that point, it was a little disappointing that there wasn't a doppelganger for Emma Stone coming out.
There wasn't one. No, there was not.
But so they get attacked by zombies, and actually the zombies attack the hotel. Flagstaff and Albuquerque say, "Oh, we'll handle this." And
right, we got
Tallahassee's
this. Yeah.
like, "Are you sure about that?" And like, "Oh yeah, we got this." And of course,
don't send a boy to do a man's job.
And of course they get bit and they start to turn immediately. And you see the same like orange vomiting that Madison went through.
Yep, right.
Before they got her out of the vehicle. But these guys, you actually see them turn full on into zombies. So there's a nice battle between the doppelgangers where they have to take out their mirror images as zombies. I could have used this scene to go on for much longer than it did. Again, this was the highlight of the movie for me, was this sequence.
The fight sequence.
Yeah. Fight sequence and the whole, cool. The whole doppelganger thing leading up to the fight sequence. I would have liked to see those characters maybe survive until the end of the movie and go along with them, but not the case. So they kill the doppelganger zombies, say goodbye to Nevada, who stays at the Hound Dog Hotel, and they move on to Babylon, and they've been given the information. Did they know where these two ended up? Did they know that they were going to Babylon?
I think that Berkeley, or what was it Berkeley? What the hell was his name?
Berkeley,
Berkeley. Because he mentioned it when he was in a car with them, that there was this commune, peace-loving commune. And it is
completely like a Woodstock hippie commune.
Yes, leave your weapons at the door. And it was just this freestanding giant Capitol. It looked like the Capitol building in California. Yeah, it did. They all just kind of lived up on the roof.
And you know what? There were throwbacks to a lot of other zombie movies, and this was one of them. This building was very similar to, there's Land of the Dead is one of the many George Romero zombie movies that he directed. And this one was the fourth, I believe, in the Dead series. Had Dennis Hopper and John Leguizamo. And it was this high-rise building that was surrounded by a moat. And the plot is that if you were rich and connected, that you could buy yourself a space in this building. And around the building, on the outside, were the poor people. So it was like a lot of the Romero zombie movies, it was a statement or a metaphor for the have and the have-nots. And the building itself resembled that Babylon building greatly. So I think it may have been a tip of the hat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had a straight up Walking Dead reference in there because he's reading a comic book at one point. Yeah. He goes, "This is horrible. This is horrific.
This is unrealistic.
This is unrealistic." Exactly. Yeah. That was a nice dig.
They could have said a little bit. I would have liked a little bit more than that. Like skewer it just a little bit more. Then I would have, But no, they didn't go there. So they go to Babylon, and it's this hippie commune. As you said, you have to put your weapons at the door. They melt them down. They don't even keep them. They melt them down into peace symbols.
And you know straight up that this is exactly how the movie's going. There's a point where Tallahassee opens up to Columbus, and he gives a story about how he's part Indian. They used to herd the buffalo over the edge of a cliff, and that's how they hunted him. And immediately you're like, oh, this is how the movie's going to end. Thank you for just telling me exactly how you're going to get rid of the zombies. And
which is what happens. Yeah, which is what happens.
But it was still a fun scene. But it's just and they go all like A-team on them.
So it's the the Terminator zombies make a reappearance. So you have a horde of these unkillable zombies because they're shooting off fireworks. They're having a celebration one night.
Drawing them to it.
Just ringing the dinner bell for them.
Yep, they're smoking pot. They're shooting off fireworks. And it's almost like the scene in World War Z. Did you guys see World War Z?
Of course we did.
Where they're behind the scenes where Brad Pitt's character goes to, was it Israel? And they've built a wall. Jerusalem. And they built a wall around the city. And they're having like a dance party or something over loudspeakers, and the zombies go nuts, and they manage to find a way in because of this noise. So it's the same effect with Babylon and the fireworks. So all these Terminator zombies are in a horde of them. They're running towards Babylon, and there's just an en masse invasion. Without weapons, they have to find a way to fight off the zombies and that's the climax of the movie. And as you said, they lead them up to the top of this high-rise building, and the staircase, again, reminiscent of 28 Days Later in that in that scene where they're being chased up the stairs in 28 Days Later.
Oh, that was scary.
We digress.
That was an intense.
As predestined by Tallahassee's character, what they do is they get all the zombies to run up to the top of the building and run off the side of the building because Tallahassee, as bait, is hanging there off of a hook in midair, and the zombies are trying to get to him as they fly over the edge, and that's how they get rid of all of the zombies. Not before we have a reintroduction of Nevada's character and a nice little sequence of monster truck on zombie action.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, like I said, there's really no plot to this.
Yeah.
We got to get from point A to point B.
Yep, it's another road trip movie, but this time instead of going to a amusement park, they're finding Little Rock in Babylon, and that's
and like I said, it's fun to visit these characters again. Did we need this sequel? Not really, especially 10 years later, but I enjoyed it. I had 5 boys in the back of my theater, and they're probably 12, 14 years old. And every time Tallahassee cursed, they would giggle like little girls. And when the movie was over, they all got up and in unison screamed, "Hasta la vista, baby," and then stormed out of the theater. So I think that they're probably your mom dropped them off to go watch some Sesame Street movie.
Now this again, we found this in It, like I did at least. This is an R-rated movie. So how are these kids even in there?
That's what I'm saying. I feel like they felt vindicated that they somehow either mom bought them tickets, walked them in, and then left, because there was no parental supervision with them. There was 5 of them, so they were just giddy. They were giggly.
Oh, we didn't. You know what we didn't mention is that Madison comes back. The character of Madison.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she magically comes back. No, she didn't turn into a zombie. She just had a peanut allergy.
She had, and apparently it was the exact same symptoms as you get when you get a zombie bite.
So they're driving, and at one point they come across an abandoned ice cream truck, and it has a clown on it. And one of Columbus's rules is, I hate clowns, don't trust clowns or whatever. And he's straight up is like, there's no way I'm getting in this van. And now they're driving down the road and they see it, and that's Madison driving the friggin' ice cream truck. And you're like, what? She's alive? And of course the characters were like, oh, I guess you didn't kill her.
Surprise.
Yeah. Thanks for shooting over my head, she says. So that was a fun to bring that character back, I thought. But it was good. Like you said, she was so over the top that to have her in the entire movie, I think would have been too much. Where, you would have just revolted.
In between the first Zombieland and this one, they tried to get off the ground a TV show.
That's right. Yes.
They had a pilot. Did you guys see it?
I've never seen the
pilot. Is it available that you can actually watch?
He was in it, right?
No, he wasn't. They had the same characters, but they had different actors.
Okay.
And I haven't seen the pilot myself, but I've seen the opening scene. They have it on YouTube. It's fun, but they have like these 2 office characters, these 2 office workers sitting against this plate glass window, and they're just conversing about first world problems, like, oh, my Keurig broke. And meanwhile, all this craziness is going on outside. There's people like on fire, cars crashing, zombies running around. It's a great opening scene, but that's all they have on YouTube. And like, I read reviews of this. It's almost unanimous that people were giving it 5 stars out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, because they said that the characters felt too forced. They said that the actors weren't the equal of movie actors. It just didn't feel coherent.
Did we sit through the credits?
I don't think you can do this without the main actors, without the
No.
movie
No,
actors.
right.
It would be like, I'm a big fan of the movie Blue Thunder from 1983. Roy Scheider.
That's because you're
in
Roy
a-
Scheider. Yeah.
The helicopter is just so cool, right? And they
It's
did
no
a TV
Airwolf.
show.
Listen, it's no Airwolf.
Yeah.
Hey, Airwolf sucked compared to Blue
What?
Thunder.
No.
Wow. Them fight
No.
words.
Stringfellow Hawk sitting on his dock with his cello.
But the movie of
Oh.
Blue Thunder was Roy Scheider and Daniel Stern as the two police officers.
Oh, I don't even
fly-
remember Daniel Stern in that.
They did a TV show against Blue Thunder, and it was I forget even who the main actor was, but it was Dana Carvey
Yes.
as the Daniel Stern character. A terrible idea to even do this as a TV show.
Wow.
So I think that would take me right out of whatever show it was. I'd be thinking of Woody Harrelson the whole time, or Emma
Yes.
Stone, or how
Right.
much better could they have done this? So I'm
Yeah.
glad in a way that didn't. I think this belongs in the movie arena rather than the TV show arena. If they're going to do it in the TV show, they should have new characters. Is
Yeah, I
that what
agree.
you were saying, Kurt? That it was going to be the same characters but with different actors?
Yeah, exactly. And what was interesting is it was written by the same screenwriting team that did the movie, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and David Callahan. And Rhett Reese, after the series fell apart, he took to Twitter and said, "You guys hated it out of existence." But which is like, so crazy for him to say. But I know I heard that Woody Harrelson wanted to do the sequel, but they didn't want to do a sequel unless they had a really solid script. They kind of took the stance that Brad Bird took with reference to The Incredibles.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah, it's not like this is Citizen Kane, so it's
no,
right.
yeah.
No.
But it was.
And speaking of different actors, we were talking about Michael Cera turning down the part of the doppelganger. They actually went to Ryan Reynolds before they got Luke Wilson to be Woody's doppelganger. And he couldn't do it because he didn't refuse, but it was because of prior commitments. So, just imagine that, Ryan Reynolds in that brief little bit. But I don't know. I think Luke Wilson brings that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
That hillbilly kind of vibe that Tallahassee had. That Ryan Reynolds probably wouldn't have been able to pull off as good.
No,
So
right.
No.
I think it worked out. It worked out in the end.
I agree. Well, did we talk about that? Did we sit through the credits?
Oh yeah, we did sit through the credits.
yeah.
I sat through the credits. Yes.
Yes.
was a
So we
great
do get a day zero. Is that what they called it? Day zero. So we got to see the zombie apocalypse unfold with Bill Murray back. I don't necessarily feel like we needed him again. And there's one point in the movie when Nevada mentions something about as long as you're not going to Murray him. And then she goes on to say, yeah, some asshole killed Bill Murray. And if I ever find out who did it, and I'm like, how did she find that out? Who would have told her? Like, how did that become like legend?
Especially, that somebody shot him by accident,
Right,
that
thinking he was a zombie. That doesn't make any sense to me, but all of a sudden this is a thing.
Well, it's been 10 years, so I guess word travels after a decade.
But he was dressed like a zombie, and if he had a hole in his head, people would just, he turned.
Well, since Albuquerque and Flagstaff are the doppelgangers, probably one of their destinations was also Bill Murray's mansion, right?
Maybe.
So that's where, that's how
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a weird
could've
kind
been.
of out of the box. But yeah, so we get to see him have a little fun smashing some zombies around. I thought it was cute.
including Al Roker.
Al Roker, yeah.
That was
Al
great.
Roker, he's in, but I love the fact that he was promoting Garfield 3. What was it called? Flabby Tabby. And they're asking him, and if you sat through the very, very end credit, the one reporter kept asking him to
Do a
act
hairball.
out the hairball. And at the very end of the credits, it's just Bill Murray.
And he does
going,
it in Spanish.
Yes, he does it in Spanish.
That was great.
Yeah, so he had a fun field day beating up some zombies there. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, and what's funny is that I feel the need when any movie that I go to see these days, I have to take out the phone as the credits start and ask Google if there's an end credit scene for whatever movie I'm in.
I do the
because
same
I don't want to
exact
leave.
thing. Yeah.
Every
Yep.
single movie, even if it's a
Yep.
drama, I'm like,
Thanks, Marvel.
end credit scene.
Yeah, I was in when I saw Solo. We're all sitting there, and the guy came in to clean the popcorn, and he's like, "It's not a Marvel movie, folks. There's no end credit. Leave." Jerk.
Worst audience ever.
Yeah, basically. Yes. Yeah. I did notice this was filmed in Georgia, though. What's up with zombies in Georgia? They get like tax credits down there?
I think that might be actually state zero. That's where the apocalypse always begins.
Right?
Is in Georgia.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
All right. Are we ready for buckets now?
Yeah, I can give buckets. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I'll give it a solid 3.5.
3.5?
3.5. If you like the first one, you'll like this one.
I'm right around there. I'll go 3.25 with this one.
All right.
How about you, Kurt? How many buckets? Out of 5 buckets.
I would
say you give it?
I would say 3.5. I mean, it was. I thought it was good. It wasn't quite as good as the first one, in my opinion. I think they did bring like a lot of interesting stuff to the table. But the first one felt like more like of a buddy cop movie meets the apocalypse. And this one, I love Zoe Deutsch's character.
Yes.
She stole the show as a ditzy blonde.
Yes.
Still, it wasn't quite as good as the first one, but still good overall.
And now let's go to the concession stand.
Is it still standing, or did the zombies take it over?
No, I think we need to refortify some of these windows because I'm hearing them get closer.
I got a concession stand in the back room.
Nice. Awesome. Let's go.
Yeah, I hope you stocked up, Kurt, because we're in for the long haul here, hopefully. Let's fortify these windows and let's come right back.
You are invited to join the banshees, the werewolves, the vampires, the gooks, who are all coming to our Halloween convention of spooks. You'll enjoy this lively group if your blood doesn't end up in the soup. Practice your screams. Break out your shrouds. Tighten your nerves. And join the crowds at our convention of spooks.
Okay, we're back. And our classic, and I am shocked that we haven't talked about this yet, and this just falls shy for me as a 5 bucket movie. This
I
just
can easily
falls
see
shy.
that. My very first note in this is there's not a single fact I can bring to the table that Jim doesn't already know on this movie.
Now, the only reason, I know I'll hold off how many buckets I'm going to give this until the end, obviously, but the only reason that this is not a 5 bucket movie for me is that I like the sequel, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, a little better than this one.
Really?
So I have to, I can't equate them equally. So Dawn of the Dead is a 5 bucket movie for me. It is on our 5 bucket list. Hopefully someday we'll get to it.
No.
But
no.
Yeah, but this one just falls below that one. So
Okay.
Again, what we're talking about here is the 1968 original classic. Now, and this is a classic in every sense of the word because this is the first time you saw zombies in any way, cinematic or anything, portrayed the way that we know them today in Zombieland, in Walking Dead, in Shaun of the Dead, in anything else that you see zombies in. It takes the basic rules are set up, and filmmakers and authors and screenwriters everywhere have taken his rules and applied them to their own zombie cinematic.
Okay, but
TV
let me
universes.
ask you this though, because the word zombie is not mentioned once in this movie.
No.
Yeah, they call them ghouls.
Yes.
Right.
Now this is the reason
So
for
where
that.
did the word zombie actually?
Well, the
come
word
from?
zombie existed long before this. It was a
Right.
thing before Night of the Living Dead.
It was
But
more like a voodoo
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
There were like
The voodoo.
slaves. So you had movies like White Zombie starring
Yeah.
Bela Lugosi from the 30s. And a lot of the movies of this type where there would be somebody that would incant something and bring these beings back from the dead to do their bidding. They were never flesh eaters. They were just mindless slaves. And that was a zombie up until Night of the Living Dead. So George Romero's thing was so different that he didn't even think of them that way because when more recent interviews with him talking about the influence of previous zombies, he says, I never thought of my ghouls that way. That's why I didn't think to call them zombies. Because to me, if you said zombie, I was thinking of that old Bela Lugosi movie where he was just like their master. So it was only, I think, later on that the public kind of gave that term to what these creatures were.
Okay.
Even though, as you say, they're never referenced as that in the movie.
No, but you're right, though. That marauding ghouls was something that was brought up a couple times. Even the one character, he just calls them, those things. So,
or murderous assassins.
Murderous assassins. Yeah, that was this is only the second time I've ever seen this. I know.
Really?
I watched it once years ago, and we'll get into it, but the ending sticks with you. The ending really sticks with you. I enjoyed watching this.
So this is a very funny story. It's in public domain. So there are, at the moment, if you go on Amazon, there are 130 different distributors that are selling this movie. I have, and I bought it just for this viewing because I'm a big fan of the movie and I didn't have it yet, the Blu-ray Criterion Collection version.
Now, was it cleaned up?
It was cleaned up. It was a print that was sourced from the Museum of Modern Art.
Oh, wow.
So they and it was restored in part by the George Lucas Foundation, actually.
Okay.
Oh.
So they took that print, they cleaned it up for Blu-ray even more, and that's what's on the Criterion disc, and it is crisp and clear black.
Yeah,
because
I'm gonna say there's some really rough lighting where like things are almost out of focus and like head shadows are blurring into faces.
And it's this is so clear that it actually reveals some inconsistencies.
Oh, really?
Is a nice way to put it.
Yeah, the fact that it turns from night to day the minute she goes inside the house.
Yes, that
day to night.
So there's that.
Okay, so that's interesting because I thought that was part of the charm. It really just starts out and you get that old static hissing from film. Yes. And I'm thinking to myself, this is what like audiophiles like live for when they play vinyl. And you hear the pops and the cracks.
You know what this is like? A lot of people have said that this is similar to watching a newsreel. So it gives that added sense of somewhat of reality to this because it's in black and white with almost like a documentary feel.
And it's nice because it just goes right in.
Yeah,
it's only 98 minutes. You and I just talked about this before. It's very brisk. It's very terse. It takes less than 3 minutes, 5 minutes at the most. Before you're being attacked by your first ghoul. Right.
This is a public domain movie. And the reason that it is, and it's public domain, so this is open season. So you're going to hear a lot of sound bites from this movie in this episode. The reason being is the original title was called Night of the Flesh Eaters. There was a title card made and everything as the car is driving up to the graveyard. That's where you see the title for Night of the Living Dead. Mm-hmm. The original title was Night of the Flesh Eaters. Back in those days, you had to have some kind of a copyright stamp. I don't know if it was on your title screen or somewhere in the movie. So you would own the rights to the movie. It would be copyrighted. So when it was called Night of the Flesh Eaters, they had a copyright stamp on that title card. There was a movie from 5 years before called The Flesh Eaters, and they found that out, and they figured they couldn't name it that because it was too close. So the distributor thought up of the name Night of the Living Dead. And when they changed the title card, they accidentally removed the copyright.
Yeah.
So, Kurt's back.
We thought you were taken by a zombie. I guess it was just a bathroom break, huh? Yeah. You still have running water? You still have running water in this place?
Yeah. I just took a bathroom break. Sorry, guys.
His ghoul friend is in the back.
So almost immediately, this was in the public domain, this movie, once people realized that it didn't have a copyright on it.
I actually did some package design for a toy company that I was going to say had the license, but apparently they didn't need a license, and they were making 12-inch figures. The first ghoul that you encountered, like a slack-jawed guy.
Yeah. Is it the guy in the cemetery?
Yes. And I guess they were going to do a whole series, but...
Are introduced to Johnny and Barbara, brother and sister.
See, I didn't realize that they were brother and sister, and at one point I'm like, he's such a whiner. Why is she even with him? Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, they're brother and sister.
Yeah, they're stuck. They're stuck together.
They're siblings. I get it. Who apparently hung out in cemeteries as kids.
Apparently, yeah. And that was their thing,
bizarre.
Were they visiting their grandfather or their father?
It was their father's grave.
I think it was the father, yeah.
The mother had sent them on like a 6-hour trip or something to go and lay a wreath at his...
Now, this movie is filmed in Pittsburgh, as most of George Romero's early movies were. So you get a little bit of exposition that's kind of where they're driving from. And it took 3 hours to get to the cemetery. It's going to take them 3 hours to get back to wherever they were. So as the zombie outbreak, if you think about this, as the zombie outbreak is happening, they're driving to the cemetery.
Right.
And there's a little throwaway. thing where he says, "Oh, the radio's back on," as if they couldn't even listen to the radio, so they don't know what's going on. But you tell me that they're not driving past all this mayhem as it's happening.
I guess they were, but look when you get to the newsreels and they're in D.C. That doesn't look like there's any.
And that's daytime.
Right, I know. There's some wonky things going on with.
Oh, look, there's some people eating people. That must be a thing around here.
Yeah. Exactly.
But as far as the movie opens, you're in the cemetery with this brother and sister. So you're assuming that this is happening. This is unfolding as they're in the cemetery. I mean, a little later on, you realize that's not the case. But
right,
here is where we get the classic line.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. Johnny does his best Boris Karloff because they see somebody coming in because he knows that she's scared of cemeteries. He sees somebody walking in the distance and he's kind of making fun of her. And she goes to walk by this person to apologize, and then boom, you realize this is the first cinematic zombie ever unfolded upon the unwitting public.
Crazy.
Now, this guy, I think, is a little too overzealous in his performance because he is he's not really what you see later on as the powerless kind of lumbering, because he's running, he's chasing, he's breaking through the window.
The rules hadn't been established yet. So.
And he actually, I was looking at the bonus feature. The actor asked George Romero on set, he said, "You told me to act like I'm powerless, but I'm supposed to kill this guy? How am I supposed to do that?"
Yeah.
And he said George Romero thought about it for a second, and then he said, just kill him. And
just kill him. Walk him on the head.
He manages to overpower Johnny and bust his head on a gravestone, which you don't know if it kills him or knocks him out or
no,
what.
And this is the nice thing, which is everything kind of unfolds. And I will say, we're talking 50 years later, but this is intense. This is an intense movie, and to be in an audience in 1968, not knowing what the hell's going on, and you're right there over Barbara's shoulder the entire time. She goes into the house. We all know, don't go into a friggin' abandoned house at this point. But it's awesome, and then you get all this exposition from these other characters who come in, and then when they turn on the radio and the TV, and then it kind of like fleshes out what exactly is going on.
Yeah, so you're learning what's happening right along with these characters. So you're in that farmhouse right along with them.
Yeah, and like I said, the production quality, I mean, I would have loved to have seen the Criterion. There were some beautiful camera angles going on. He's got some nice stuff going. Like I said, I'm not a big zombie fan. I saw this once. I probably have never seen any other George A. Romero movie. But looking at it, I was like, this is kind of cool. I mean, especially because no one had ever seen anything like this before.
It's true. He was embarking on new ground. Now, from what I understand, they didn't set out to make a horror movie. George Romero was part of a production company called Image 10 that made commercials for local businesses in Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. And
they really wanted to make a comedy or something, didn't they?
Yeah, they wanted to break into film, and they realized that the best way to do it, and probably the way to gain the most attention and make the most money, would be to go into like the horror genre, because that would be a quick buck, and that maybe would allow them to make other movies if it was successful. And they figured, okay, if we're gonna steep that low to do a horror movie, let's do something that's good. Let's try to be the best that we can, and maybe do something that nobody's ever seen or done before.
Yeah, well, they succeeded in that regard. The music is overwhelming as well. The music is really, really.
Let me tell you, the music is library music. None of this score.
Really?
None of this original.
Score.
Well, the opening score reminded me so much of like every 50s alien invasion.
It was used. That's what it was used for.
That's exactly what you get.
Yeah.
But such an effect. I mean, it is almost its own character. Because Barbara becomes absolutely worthless when she's in the house.
Exactly. Yeah, and even all those weird like electronic moments, musical moments in there, like especially at the end when the zombies finally break into the cabin and you hear that like the In Search Of type music. Mm-hmm. That's also library music. So when I say library music, I don't mean he went to his local library and got this out. What I mean is that Columbia Records, actually had storage on vinyl records. They had musical cues that you page through, and so somebody involved with the production went through the trouble of going through all these cues and pulling out what they thought would work against the scenes.
Well, yeah.
And bringing them to Romero, and then they all cut them in, and they do so brilliantly. There's one scene when Ben drives up to the house for the first time, when you're introduced to his character, and you hear this overwhelming, this manic type music, and he knocks over one of the zombies. He goes inside the house, he slams the door, and as soon as he slams the door, the music cuts immediately.
Yeah.
So there's those little things. That's a
nice little moment. Yep.
Yeah. So as we said, Barbara finds this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, seemingly abandoned. She goes in and finds a corpse upstairs
which is kind of disturbing.
We're given a little bit of info that this is the lady that owns the house. And maybe she's an old lady or whatever, but apparently she's been eaten. There's been enough of her eaten that she cannot regenerate as a zombie. And George Romero had said that this effect of the close-up of the head, the half-eaten head, was done with just a prop skull that you can buy in any store, with ping pong balls for the eyes. Wow. And just some like matted wig hair like put over around it. And of course, liberally Bosco chocolate was used for
the blood. Yeah.
For the blood.
Nice, Bosco.
They did everything on the cheap.
Actually, for our Instagram graphic this week, that's the movie poster I pulled.
Is a close up of that? Of a close up of that?
Yeah. But it's awesome. That's like an illustration with like a graveyard on one side and like a torn tree on the other.
Oh, I see.
Kind of a thing. It's kind of neat.
So she finds the owner of the house. So apparently zombies were in the house at one point, long enough to attack and eat this owner. They're not there anymore. She sees like some furniture thrown over and everything else. So there's been some kind of a struggle. She's not in there more than a few minutes before this truck pulls up, and then we get the character of Ben.
Well, he didn't have a name for like the first hour of the movie.
No, he doesn't.
And then all of a sudden, the other guy, Tom, says, "Oh, I got to go help Ben." I'm like, "Oh, I guess that's his name."
Now, this is played by Dwayne Jones, who seemingly is the most seasoned actor of this production, because he is far and away better than anybody else.
Yeah, he holds it. He holds this. The whole rest of this movie's on his shoulders.
A lot has been said about George Romero taking a risk because this is an African-American actor in a time when African-American actors did not lead a movie, and how he's been lauded as, giving him the lead. And he said, "Oh, it's not a big deal. He was just the best actor."
Right.
It wasn't
Which is
written
the way
with,
it should always be.
Yeah. It wasn't written with a specific race or type in mind, other than this was a trucker who wasn't the smartest character. And Dwayne Jones refused to actually read the dialogue as it was written because he thought it was too demeaning for this character. And so
wasn't he like a college professor or something?
He was.
Yeah.
So he brought a very distinguished tone to this character, and I think that really informs this movie and his performance. So he is extremely memorable as Ben.
Yeah.
I think that they're getting closer. Can you refortify that window, please?
Okay, we'll do.
Now, speaking of which, at one point he even says that until they start boarding up, and he goes, "This place is pretty boarded up solid now." And I'm like, "There's an open window right behind you.
Him.
Turn around."
Why film that scene and that particular line with that visible in the shot?
Right. Even the director's like, "I can't see it. I can't see it."
You feel like a zombie face should be looking in, huh? Like, what's going on in here?
It would have been better if he turned around and went, "Oops." Yeah.
Ooh, except for that one.
Yeah, and let me point out at this point, because this happens early on, the Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman zombie that first gets into the house. Can we talk about that?
Rubens.
Was this Paul Rubens' father maybe in this movie?
Oh my God.
Possibly.
Now this is where some of the inconsistencies I was talking about comes in with the Blu-ray, because Ben sticks a tire iron right in the middle of the zombie's forehead, and Barbara is kind of entranced looking at this zombie on the floor with a hole in its head. And in the Blu-ray, you see his eyes move a little bit after.
Really? Yeah. I will say that most of the violence happens like just off screen, so it's not like straight up gore.
Like when you see Ben throttling a zombie with his tire iron, it's looking at him. You don't see actually what he's hitting.
Yeah. So nowadays they just go for that gore factor. The squished head, whatever. Yeah,
so. And as we said before, Ben starts boarding up this place. Some windows he leaves inexplicably unboarded up in the background. Yeah. But he also finds a television set from upstairs. So this is how you're given the information of what's happening. So
they had the radio on first, right?
They did have the radio on
Right,
first.
the radio on, and you're getting these little bits and drabs of information. You know, they realize that it's widespread. Looking over my shoulder now.
Yeah. So this is where you're getting the information of what's happening.
And they were referring to them as like mass homicide killers.
Yeah, there's something going on here. You know, it's nationwide. There's a plague, an epidemic of mass homicide going on by these mysterious assassins. Now, these bits and pieces of what you're getting on the radio and what you're getting on the television, these are the most fascinating bits of the movie for me, because I'm right there glued to the television.
It reminds me of the movie Signs when you know they're trapped in the house and there's something going on, and they're watching the footage unfold on TV of this alien invasion.
You know what? This is what makes me think of what was so lacking when Fear of the Walking Dead premiered, because you were promised before that premiered that you would see the start of the zombie apocalypse. And they did that for maybe half of an episode, and then you were right into it, just like The Walking Dead was. I'm like, this
Bill
is
Murray
the information.
In that episode too?
This is kind of what I was looking for from Fear of the Walking Dead, was stuff like this. So so the characters are learning what's going on in real time. And that's
you don't
when
have
we
those
find
windows
out.
Boarded up yet.
And that's when we find out that we've got other people in the house.
Yeah, I didn't get that right away, that they were in the basement.
They were in the basement the whole time. They were in there before Barbara got
And then
there.
they were lying to him. They're like, well, why didn't you come upstairs? He said, you heard her screaming. Oh, we didn't hear her scream. And then 2 seconds later, he was like, well, we didn't know what was going on up here. He said, all right, what is it? And
get
you
your
find
story
out
straight.
this Harry Cooper and his family, and he is just a complete high-strung D-bag.
This guy is played by Carl Hardman, and his wife is Helen, played by Marilyn Eastman. They're two of the producers of the movie. They took these lead roles themselves. And the movie was so low budget, Marilyn Eastman, who played Helen, also did a lot of the makeup effects for the zombies in the movie. And she also plays the zombie that eats a bug off of a tree that you see.
Really?
So that's Helen Cooper eating the bug off of the tree.
Wow.
And he played the voice of the newscaster in Johnny's car.
Cool.
At the very beginning. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So they are in the best Fred and Ethel mode is Harry and Helen Cooper. Yeah. And believe me, you don't want to hang with this Mr. Cooper. There's no hanging with Mr. Cooper here.
Nice.
A little stressful.
So no wonder Barbara and Ben don't want to go down in the cellar with this guy, right? I wouldn't want to hang with him either. So so they're in the cellar. They come up, and we also have Tom and Judy. Not Tom and Jerry. Tom and Judy in the cellar with them. So we got 2 teenage lovers who also I'm not really sure who got there first. Was it Tom and Judy, or was it the Coopers that got to the house first? I think it was Tom and Judy. Because
Tom was the first character we were introduced to.
He says that they knew the old lady.
The guy who played Tom is not a good actor.
No, not at all.
But didn't he look a little bit like Jake Gyllenhaal? When I looked at him, I said he looks a little bit like Jake Gyllenhaal, even though he's not related at all. His name is Keith Wayne.
Are you hitting the lysergics again there?
Yeah, maybe.
I got more of a Carmine Ragusa vibe from him.
Oh, okay.
Now okay. I was like, that's a little bit too obscure for me. You're gonna have to explain that. But no, he just looked like a bad actor to me.
Yeah.
He lived up to his
role. He lived up to that.
Now, apparently, this guy, Keith Wayne was his name, and he was a singer-songwriter from the Pittsburgh area, so he was not a professional actor, and it shows.
Yeah, this is his only role.
Yeah, so they're all holed up in the basement, along with Karen Cooper, who is the daughter of Helen and Harry, who has been bitten. It seems that their car has turned over, which Harry says like 1 million times in the movie. They turned over our car.
Well, that was his argument, which was, let's go in the basement. At least there's one door to fortify. There's one door. And of course, Ben's like, but now you got nowhere to go. If they get through, we're done. And he's like, I boarded up all these windows. He goes, they turned over my car. There wasn't 4. Imagine if there's 20 of them. They're going to come right through these windows.
But the great line is when he says that, he goes, and Ben says, well, they're going to get us wherever we are.
Did you hear me when I told you they turned over our car?
Oh, hell, any good 5 men can do that.
That's my point. Only there's not going to be 5 or even 10. There's going to be 20, 30, maybe 100 of those things. And as soon as they know we're here, this place is going to be crawling with them.
Well, if there's that many, they'll probably get us wherever we are.
That's if there's that many of them. So
yeah.
But it wasn't true. Harry was right the whole time. There was 100 of them, and he was safe in the basement at the end.
Well, he made it back to the basement eventually.
He did. After getting everybody else killed. But
yeah, so
they
Barbara,
come up.
Barbara is wasted. Like she's just a vegetable.
She's catatonic.
She's zoned out.
Yeah. And then when she does come back, she has this great dialogue speech. She's screaming, and all she does is just reiterate what we saw in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden she's like, "We gotta go save my brother." And he's like, "He's dead."
Yeah, like she remembers this like 2 hours after the fact. Like, oh wait, he's still there. Yeah.
Wait a minute, my brother's still out there. We gotta go save him. No, we're all holed up. And then they get this brilliant idea. Let's go gas up the truck, and we'll go get that car.
Yep.
It didn't work out. So
and even if you haven't seen this before, this is not going to end well. This idea.
No. Let's take an open flame near a gas pump. That always
brilliant.
Yes, exactly. Genius. Ben had a really good line against Cooper at one point too, when he was screaming about his family in the basement. He goes, "It's tough for that kid that their old man is so stupid."
If you're stupid enough to go die in that trap, that's your business. However, I am not stupid enough to follow you. It is tough for the kid. Their old man is so stupid. Now, you get the hell down in the cellar. You can be the boss down there. I'm boss up here.
That's a good one. But I like the way it just unfolds. It unfolds. To me, it was almost like a Broadway play, because you're now trapped in one location. And yeah, they're upstairs and maybe they're downstairs, but it's like they're just in this house now. And they're just dealing with the shit outside.
Yeah. It just steamrolls towards this undeniable, unavoidable conclusion.
And the more information, now all of a sudden you got the guy on the television, and they're talking about, all right, well, we're now tying this somehow into a what was it? It was the returning defense. It was a returning Venus probe explodes, and there's like high dosage radiation.
Yep, they tracked it was taking pictures of Venus, and on its way back, they realized that it had this mysterious radiation attached to it, and they shot it down. And somehow they're tying this radiation to.
So I thought that was kind of neat, because you've never seen. I don't know if they've ever tied like the zombie apocalypse into something like that, which I thought was really neat. Now you got the National Defense was on there, and they got these rescue stations. If you're anywhere near these stations, get there immediately. And so I guess that was the catalyst for them to be like, all right, we're not going to be safe in this house for very long. Yep. So we have to make it to one of these safe stations.
Yeah, we've got some rednecks. We've got hicks at these with guns. You'll be safe here. You're in good hands.
Yeah, they were cutting to those good old boys in the flannel. Going to go out and shoot us.
Now, the interesting thing about the Venus probe is on the Criterion disc, there is an actual newsreel. There was an actual Venus probe that was monitoring radiation around Venus, and that's where the screenwriters got the idea.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but they also pointed out as well in the bonus features is that was never meant to be the explanation, because it was cut out, but they also had, as they were changing channels on the radio or the TV, that they were seeing some other theories about why this was happening. Like, was it a religious phenomenon? Were there other things? So they never meant that radiation thing to be the main explanation, but the distributor wanted the movie cut down from the original print. And
it was only 98 minutes to begin with.
Yeah, I know. And that radiation angle was the only one that survived. Okay. So that kind of became the official. But I think that's as good as any,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's something we've never really seen before or heard.
An explanation has never been attempted in any other one of these things.
But again, now all of a sudden you start getting reports of they are eating flesh. They're flesh-eating, marauding ghouls.
Another great line in this movie is when that's first established on the television, and the reporter is talking to the expert who saw a cadaver with no limbs open its eyes and try to sit up.
Well, how long after death, then, does the body become reactivated?
It's only a matter of minutes.
Minutes? Well, that doesn't give people time to make any arrangements.
No, you're right. It doesn't give them time to make funeral arrangements. The bodies must be carried to the street and burned. They must be burned immediately. Soak them with gasoline and burn them. The bereaved will have to forego the dubious comforts that a funeral service will give. They're just dead flesh and dangerous.
They must be burned immediately. There's no time for funeral arrangements, nor the dubious comforts that such an arrangement will give the public.
Dubious.
What is this? The only anti-funeral guy on the face of the earth?
Funeral
He's like-
parlors around the world are like, damn you, zombies.
He's been waiting for this moment to shine. You know, the
Correct.
dubious comforts of a
Dubious.
funeral arrangement.
Dubious. Yes, kill the brain, kill the ghoul. That's shoot him in the head.
Yeah. There you go. Again, this is classic zombie trope set up for all of time to follow as well.
Yeah.
So,
and there was one of the talking heads on the radio was Dr. Grimes.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, I wonder.
That's
I said,
interesting.
Interesting.
So I wonder if Kirkman pulled that out of his buttocks.
So the attempt for them to escape is tragic, ends in tragedy.
Tom and Judy. At least they made a hot meal.
It's true. It was a barbecue. It was a complete barbecue.
Yeah.
No, Barbara was still inside. Barbecue.
Nice.
Thank
I
you.
think that might be our bumper for this, episode. Yeah.
I will tell you though that
Barbecue.
so Ben makes it back into the house and friggin' Cooper's like keeping the door locked, and I'm like, punch him in the face, punched him in the face, punched him in the face.
Punched him many times. In
Yes,
the face.
he did.
Yeah.
I would have thrown his ass out, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
right then
yeah.
and there. I'm sorry, dude.
But yeah, as you said, stupidly puts the open flame right next to on the ground, right next to the car.
Right, so it ignites.
Tom flails that gas nozzle out of the gas pump, ignites. He gets in the car to drive it away so the pump doesn't explode. And then what happens? Judy gets her jacket caught, and he's trying to get her out. Boom! The thing explodes.
Yep. You do know that if they ever remade this with Schwarzenegger, he would just have turned that into like a flamethrower, right? Light up the gas pump, take them all out.
Yeah, speaking of Schwarzenegger, have you ever seen Maggie, the Schwarzenegger zombie movie? Surprisingly really good.
No. Was that after he was...
Kurt, do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
That was the
This is
movie
the first
he
I've ever
did
heard of
after he left office in California?
Yeah,
more
this
recent.
was a more recent movie where his
Right. I thought it was after The
Schwarzenegger's
Last Stand.
13-year-old daughter is bitten, and I guess it's in the world of this movie, it takes a longer incubation period for somebody to turn zombie. But he's dealing with the fact that his daughter's bitten, and he's trying to find a way to save her. And it's like a dramatic kind of horror movie, and he's really good in it. So maybe we should look this up. At
Interesting.
Some point.
She's good at turn.
You're bitten by zombie.
But you're right. Cooper was right all along. They should have just gone into the basement.
They should have, yeah. So Ben tries to get back in the house after the truck explodes, slaps Cooper around a little bit after he breaks down the door after Cooper tries to lock him out. Yeah. And that's really when everything
just falls apart.
That's
Yeah.
The power goes out, the zombies. This is the other thing is like when Ben first gets into the house, he tells Barbara, turn on every light in the house. I'm like, why would you want to do that?
Right, correct.
You're broadcasting that you're in there, just like the fireworks in Zombieland.
Yeah.
So they already have a gathering of about 100 zombies outside the house by the time they try to escape. And now the zombies, after that gory scene where they eat Tom and Judy, and that's where all the entrails and everything come out. Now, this was what made the movie so controversial in its day, because you didn't really see that in movies except for exploitation movies that only played in Times Square, not in a widely distributed movie like this. And this played on Saturday afternoon matinees in local towns. So a lot of kids didn't know what hit them when they went to go see this movie. When their parents dropped them off, like they normally would go to see a Dracula movie on a Saturday afternoon, like a Hammer Christopher Lee Dracula movie.
But even some of those weren't gory, but they loved to like the gushing blood.
Yeah,
I remember like Blackula. I think the guy gets stabbed, and it's like a fire hose of blood pouring out.
Right. So this kind of opened up that world of what you could do in terms of violence on the movie screen. And the entrails were real lamb entrails that they got from a local butcher. So, and depending on who was being filmed, I guess some of the actors were a little bit more overzealous than others. Where in order to get that screen time, they actually
there was a liver. I saw a liver at one point. Yeah.
So some of the other body parts were supposedly the crew's leftover lunch.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that an Italian combo you got over there, Bob?
And I noticed the one close-up of the zombie eating the hand, which can only be Judy's because the nails are so nicely manicured.
Well, it couldn't
that
have been
looked pretty
Bob's.
Realistic. It
did. I wonder if it was just somebody's hand, like she was holding it, and it just close enough in frame that you couldn't see it, that it was still attached. But yeah, you're right. And but the Karen thing was more disturbing to me.
That was that's the most freakish scene in this whole movie.
And I immediately flashed back to The Walking Dead when we got the reveal of Sophie, who was missing.
Yeah.
You know? So you see, I mean, again, 50 years old, this movie laid the groundwork, but you kind of see the influences of all these other zombie movies that have kind of picked from it.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but yeah, that Karen scene where she attacked her mother, she makes her way down the basement.
And
she eats her dad.
She eats her dad because Ben shoots him after he slaps him around a little
3
bit.
bullets on him.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, save your bullets.
Doesn't even shoot him in the head. Just gives him gut shots, right?
Yeah.
So then he falls down into his beloved basement.
Yep,
so
you made the basement.
Yep, so he dies down there. Before Ben goes down, he and Barbara take one last stand to try to block the doors being ripped open.
Yeah, now she comes out of her
zombies.
stupor. She comes out of her stupor just in time to be reunited with her brother.
Yeah. And you get that, as if you couldn't figure it out anyway, they have to close up the driving glove that
you're right.
that they took pains of showing in the beginning, him putting on the gloves.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how you figure that is her brother from the
well, I think she even says, Johnny.
Yep.
Here's Johnny.
Yeah.
So now Ben.
So now Ben is by himself up there. So he finally goes down to the basement. He relents and he goes down there. He boards up the door. The zombies all come in. So they're all milling about the living room where they were just sitting around just moments before. So he goes down and Karen has eaten the arm off of her father, as you said. But she has also killed her mother with a garden trowel. Now, again, this is where the sound effects and the editing and everything else just all come together, and you just takes you into this otherworldly, nightmarish place where you see the Bosco dripping down the walls. And
and again, it's it's kind of, you don't really see it penetrating, but it's enough that it's just it's shocking.
And the mother's screams are just electronically treated into these high-pitched, like ear-splitting sounds.
I thought they were my screams, to be honest.
So that's an intense sequence. And this happens right before Ben goes down into the cellar. So Karen comes out and tries to bite him on the arm before he retreats into the cellar. And he ends up throwing her onto the couch and she rebounds. And then that's when he finally goes down. But and she just joins the zombie horde upstairs trying to get into that door.
Yeah, it is a massive buildup.
Yeah.
That last attack is pretty intense.
Yeah, and as he goes down the stairs, you see the whole wall like kind of being pushed against. Like you see the wall moving as the zombies are beating down, trying to get into that door.
If only they had seen that open window.
So he's got to kill the 2 zombies because now the 2 Coopers are zombies downstairs in the basement. So he's got to shoot them. So he holds himself in the basement for the rest of the night.
Yep.
And so then we open. We
nice.
open on the next morning.
Nice idyllic morning. The sun is rising.
Yep. The birds are chirping.
Yep.
And then we get our good old boy posse coming through.
Yep. And they're just cleaning house, man.
Yeah. You see some of the random zombies that you recognize from the scenes the night before that are still milling around the outside of the house, and they're shooting them down. They're making a bonfire. You've gotten the sense already. There's a great scene earlier when the leader of this posse, the sheriff, is being interviewed, and he gives that line.
Are they slow moving, Chief?
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
They're all messed up.
You can say that again, Bob.
Yeah, so he's the guy there that's leading this posse. So he's organizing the bonfire, and he tells the team to go sweep through the house. And before they do, Ben hears them. He hears the
sirens. He hears the sirens going on.
There's a helicopter. I don't know how much that costs to use. But so he hears this. So he tentatively takes the boards off the door. He opens the door. There's no zombies left in the house. He peeks through the window. And this is where the gut shot of the movie gets you. One of the posse sees Ben looking through the window, mistakes him for a zombie, shoots him right through the head, and
down he goes.
And I think the line is "nice shot." Closing credits, a run over still pictures of Ben being dragged out of the house and thrown onto the bonfire with all the rest of the zombies, and he's right next to the cemetery zombie in one still photo on the bonfire. The first zombie that you see is right next to Ben on the bonfire before they light it up. And that's when the still photos stop, and then it kicks back into the movie after the credits, the bonfire lighting up, and that's it, then fade to black. Almost a perfect ending.
Like I said, I've only, the first time I saw this, that ending just sticks with you because it is it's heart wrenching.
You've been through this traumatic experience with these characters all for naught. Nobody gets out alive.
It's kind of like Aliens 3.
Yeah.
All for naught.
It's true. Yeah. What happened to Hicks and Newt and Bishop?
Yeah,
they're all gone.
All for naught.
Yeah.
Now, was Ben originally supposed to survive, like in the original script, or did they make a modification to something, or was that always scripted in? Do you know?
It was always scripted in, as a matter of fact. Columbia and American International Pictures, and American International was the king of exploitation pictures in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and B movies. Jeff, your beloved Death Race 2000 was made by American International and Roger Corman. They refused to carry, because these were just a few of the major studios that Romero and Image 10 shopped Night of the Living Dead to, and they refused to carry it because they wanted them to change the ending. And they stuck to their guns and said no. So they finally got this nickel and dime place, the Walter Reed organization, to distribute the film. And they're the ones that made the mistake with the copyright. So,
Oops.
Yeah, exactly. My bad.
But as far as I know, it was always, that was always meant to be, that Ben was to be killed.
But you're right. It's such a gut punch. It is.
Yeah.
It's a very Twilight Zone kind of twist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can tell you this, though. There was an alternate ending that was written that had Ben being killed, but Barbara survives. She goes into the basement with him in this original draft of the screenplay. She survives because he gets shot, but she's still in the house, and then she's found. And then they realize what they've done when they find Barbara with Ben. And then Barbara, at this point, it's apparent at the end of the screenplay that she's catatonic. So, and she's completely insane by the end of the movie. In no way was it a brighter ending, but they had it so...
No, I think this is a little more
killed.
poignant. I like this, that they don't even realize what they did. They just, they're cleaning up and
now
collateral
again,
damage. Yeah, I thought actually at one point I saw a calendar on the wall in the kitchen, and it was December 67. But that just could have been the old lady didn't turn it.
Yeah, it took 7 months to film this movie, just because because everybody else had jobs, so they could only film this on weekends, Saturday and Sunday. So
that's why they didn't care whether it was night or day. Because
and what's funny is that all the house that they found to shoot the exteriors and the interiors in was set to be demolished, so they could do whatever they wanted to this house.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, they had to furnish it for the movie because it was completely empty. And all the interior scenes they shot during the day and had to cover the windows with black paper, so you couldn't tell that it was daylight out.
I read that originally they were trying to self-finance this, and there was like 10 people involved, and they were each pitching in $600. So they had $6,000 to work with in the beginning, and then they pitched in like another $6,000, and they said $12,000 isn't going to cut it. We need outside financing. So I think they eventually got like about $114,000 to complete the film. But even that like is a shoestring budget.
Right.
So. And as you said, you have to get investors to give you that money. Now, how does that work? I wonder. Like, how do they get their money back?
That's like Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Especially on a movie that isn't copyrighted.
Right, exactly. You're not getting your money back.
Oops.
That is a costly mistake.
Yeah, big time.
So this was really divided critics when it was first released in 1968. Now, again, like I said before, it largely played drive-ins and Saturday matinee movie houses. And it didn't really gain reputation as a cult movie until 2 years later. I think 1970, it was revived in midnight movies all across the country. And that's when it really started to gain steam. Eventually enough that George Romero, the sequel was demanded enough that he eventually made Dawn of the Dead in 76, 77. You either loved this or hated it. And the ones that hated it took issue with the violence. There's a quote that I read from Variety from early 1969, because the movie came out in October of 68. And here's the quote: this movie casts serious aspersions on the integrity of the filmmakers, the exhibitors who book the picture, and the moral health of filmgoers who cheer and totally opt for this orgy of sadism. So
That's heavy-handed.
So it indicts anybody even remotely connected and people that watch this movie. Like
that's like some of the reviews for Joker.
Yeah,
it's like
And Roger Ebert famously reviewed this for the Chicago Sun-Times in 1969, and he was in a Saturday afternoon matinee with kids watching this movie. And he said, it was all fun and games during the first half of the movie when nobody's dead yet.
Right.
But especially when they get to the scene where Karen is killing her mother, the audience of kids stopped laughing and stopped carrying on and suddenly got very quiet and serious. And he said there was a little girl that was by herself. I guess her parents had dropped her off at the theater, by herself in the seat across from him, like a 9 or 10-year-old girl who was weeping. He said that the kids didn't know what hit them. So he was on the negative side of the reviews when it first came out, but he changed his tune as the years went on and recognized it as a classic. But
wow.
Yeah, so it really divided people back then.
Yeah, let's see if it divides us.
Yeah, let's see.
We know where Jim stands.
Oh, yeah, we know where I am. I'm going to give this, I would think, 4 3/4. I'm going to go right up to the 5 bucket limit and go just below it. So I'm going to go as far as you can without actually going 5 bucks.
Kurt?
I would give it a 4. I had never actually seen it from beginning to end before. I've seen bits and pieces over the years. This is my first time to see the whole thing. And I realized that it's a classic. I liked it. It was really good. It was highly original and obviously influential.
Yeah, no, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go 4 1/4. This is well outside my wheelhouse. I'm not comfortable watching these movies, but watching it, it really is impressive. It's an impressive piece of film, especially after hearing, the limitations of what they had trying to put this thing together.
Yeah.
So kudos. Yeah, I was very impressed.
A personal story about Night of the Living Dead. The first time I saw it was at the dawn of the VCR age in 1982, 1981, when VCRs first really came out to the and were available to most of the public and were affordable. I remember before we actually bought a VCR, we rented one for the weekend. We from a local electronics store. And we had, I remember Condor Man being one of the first titles that we watched.
Oh, wow.
And my father got a copy of Night of the Living Dead because he had seen it when he was younger. And I don't know if I watched it with him, but I remember him getting it. But it sparked an interest in me.
Son, you're going to love this.
Yeah. So remember when we talked about Aliens last week, and we talked about how when we were younger, the way of getting around the R rating was to get the movie tie-in novelization.
Yeah.
So once Night of the Living Dead became part of my radar, once I knew it was out there, I went and looked for the novel, and sure enough, I found it. It was written by John Russo, who co-wrote the screenplay with Romero.
Okay.
And so it was pretty, seeing this movie later on, it was pretty accurate to what happens in the movie. There wasn't anything extra in there. But I remember bringing it to school, and I went to a Catholic grade school, right? So I remember bringing it to school, and there was a buddy of mine. His name was Chris Lazat. So he was very much of the same mind where I would let him borrow these movie tie-ins that I would bring in. So he borrowed Night of the Living Dead, and we obsessed about it. There was a book report that we had to do. And Chris wanted to do Night of the Living Dead. So he asked if he could borrow the book again so he could get his book report ready. And what this was, it wasn't just for our class. It was for the whole school. And it was for kindergarten through 8th grade. So this book report was done in the auditorium. And in order to do it, it was an oral book report. He dressed as a zombie. He came in with the white makeup, with the black around his eyes, and went through the whole story. He got in trouble with the nuns because
didn't see that coming.
They didn't stop him. They didn't stop him from doing it. But once he gave,
once he committed the act, then he's like, all right,
he told the whole story. It's like the zombies, like they killed a mother. They shoot Ben at the end, and they. It wasn't like kids were crying and everything. The ones that were actually listening to him were like, "What is this kid doing?" And
wow.
So yeah, he got into a little bit of trouble with that, and I did by extension as well. I think.
Well, you were his gateway drug. You're his dealer.
I was.
So, you were his dealer, man.
So I do remember that vividly. Him standing up there.
Wow, that's crazy. That's a great story.
Yeah. So there you go. So confessional this week.
Confessionals.
Now, Kurt, we didn't share this with you yet, so this is going to be an ad-lib for you.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty easy though. We kind of were batting around ideas of what to ask ourselves for this, and so we came up with this. Do we think that a zombie apocalypse could happen in the same way that it unfolds in the way that we see in movies like Night of the Living Dead or Walking Dead? Would it be like instantaneous, one night, boom, we have this problem? Do you think that it's realistic to think that if this phenomenon happened, that it would rage out of control, where it would actually take over and the dead would be dominant over the living? I'm not sure if I think we would let it get to the point that it does in these movies. I think that they establish that the unburied dead are who comes back, and who knows, the dead in the ground might be rolling around in their graves. They just don't have the power to get up.
They're all down there. They're
all down there. They're stuck.
What the hell happened?
But how many could there be? Once you get a handle on what's happening, I think we could contain it. It wouldn't be ragingly out of control like they portray it in these movies. I think that once you realize that, okay, these dead people are getting out of their morgues, that there's some in the streets, we need to shoot them down. I don't know, maybe I'm putting too much, I'm giving too much credit to our authorities here, the army and the police and everybody else.
It also depends.
I don't think it would get out of control like it does in this movie. I think that they would bring it under control pretty quickly.
Maybe in some of those outlying nations that don't really have a big.
True. Yes.
It could run. I guess maybe I misunderstood the concept of this confessional, because I started looking into like real world diseases that can be weaponized.
Yeah.
And create pandemics. I don't think you'd ever get to the point where you have people walking around eating each other. It wouldn't necessarily be zombies, people coming back from the dead. But did you ever read into what happens when you get mad cow disease? Because I always said if I was going to die, I'm going to die from mad cow disease, because you're never going to get me to stop eating red meat. And it is just from eating tainted red meat.
Right. What's funny is that now that you say that, we didn't bring up with Zombieland that in the first Zombieland, that's what they established the problem is that it's mad people disease.
Oh, I don't remember that.
So they never actually say that these are corpses reanimated. It's kind of like a 28 days later situation in Zombieland.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I don't remember that in Zombieland. But mad cow disease is incurable. And basically the symptoms, you start, there's a level of anxiety and nervousness, and then you get a rapid deterioration of your rhythmic muscle contractions. And then confusion, dementia, along with insomnia, slurred speech, and unresponsiveness kick in. So you could have people wandering around aimlessly looking like zombies, just not feeding on flesh.
Oh, okay.
So
what do you think? Do you think this could happen in reality?
Well, I kind of side with Jeff. Like if it was like in a third world country, it might take off and be uncontainable. But if it happened in the United States, I think, the military would move in and contain it fairly quickly. There's a Timothy Olyphant movie that came out like years ago where there's a town that got taken over. But I don't remember the name of it, but a plane crashed and it poisoned the water supply and turned everybody into almost a zombie-like state. And they wound up nuking the place at the end. But I think that type of scenario might happen in the United States if it started to snowball out of control.
If it's an outlying factor like this poison water supply.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So that way a lot more people are exposed to it than would be, say, if it's just dead people coming back and you have to get bitten in order to turn into a zombie.
Yeah.
But it is, it is a nice crutch. It is a nice setup to use for movies like this. And again, as we said, a lot of people have taken this Romero idea and made it into its own genre. So just for that, I think this deserves kudos, this movie.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. So that was our episode. So hopefully we can fend off these zombies long enough to tell you what's on tap for next week.
I think we actually bored them to death. They are now just lethargic laying on the ground.
So next week we have, and we did mention the Terminator, but we've got a new Terminator movie coming out. So we are going to be covering Terminator. What's the subtitle of this? I don't even know.
Dark Fate.
Dark Fate.
Dark Fate. Okay.
Double Tap. Terminator.
Yeah, right.
Everything old is new again.
Yeah.
So this is technically the 18th Terminator movie? How many of there? There's been.
I think that this is actually 6th.
Yeah,
But-
and what
they're
movies
negating-
are they ignoring for this story to pick up?
They're ignoring 3 on.
Yeah,
So
3
you're
and
getting
Genesis
rid of
and-
which was Rise of the Machines. 4
Right.
was Genesis. No,
or no, that was Salvation.
Salvation. That was Bale. Christian Bale.
Right.
Christian Bale. Salvation, and then you had Genesis.
And then, of course, you had the TV series,
Which was great.
which was great. Yeah, but I'm
Was
sure they're not
great.
paying any attention to that either.
No. I don't know. I have low expectations, to be honest with you, boys. I really feel that we're not going to see anything new that we haven't already seen.
Yeah, and I'm feeling it like you could work in that dark fate into a sarcastic Instagram post. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Now, Jeff, do you want to offer what our classic feature is going to be next week?
Yes, because I'm actually really excited about this. We are going to be watching Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, nice.
Yes. I believe the tie-in is that the director of Dark Fate actually was a creative consultant on the Scott Pilgrim movie. So that's our loose thread that we are.
Our tenuous, loose tie-in to the.
Yeah,
just,
you know what? There's a point. There's too many raging robots and whatever. And Scott Pilgrim is just a great.
Yeah, I think Jeff has been trying to find a way to get
yes.
Scott Pilgrim in for a long, long time.
Hey, sort of
So speaking of Michael Cera, right?
Yeah, true.
Right. And this movie is if you've never seen Scott Pilgrim, do yourself a favor, go find it, watch it, and then come back and listen to us next week because it is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's a unique movie for sure.
At least Michael Cera can say, like, well, I wasn't in Zombieland, but I was in Scott Pilgrim.
Yes,
damn straight.
Exactly.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, guys, what was that?
I don't know.
I think they're getting in. I think.
No.
Ah!